Let's be honest for a second. Most of the crap we whine about on a daily basis, our struggles, our insecurities, our little excuses about why things didn't work out. Nobody gives a damn. You failed an exam. Nobody cares. You didn't get the job. Nobody cares. Your heart got broken. Your cat ran away. Or you woke up today feeling like a potato. Nobody cares. At least not in the way you want them to. And if they do care, it's usually for 5 minutes, until Netflix drops a new season of something, and your tragedy is shoved to the dusty corners of their memory. The world doesn't stop spinning for your problems. It doesn't stop spinning for mine either. That's a harsh truth, but here's the kicker, it's also the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Because if nobody cares, if the world isn't sitting there judging you under a microscope, if people are too busy scrolling through their phones and worrying about their own insecurities, then that means you have no excuse. You have the freedom to screw up, to fail spectacularly, to be messy and unpolished and still get back up. Because at the end of the day, nobody cares. The only thing that matters is whether you work hard enough to give them a reason to. See, we live in this age where everyone's hunting for validation like it's Pokemon Go. We post, we share, we wait for the likes, the claps, the comments, the dopamine hits that tell us, yes, we see you, you matter, but deep down we know it's bullshit. Those hearts on Instagram aren't love. That thumbs up on Facebook isn't commitment. Most people tap the like button with the same emotional weight they use to swat a mosquito. It's empty, it's shallow. And it won't save you when life smacks you in the face. The real game is this. You stop expecting the world to clap for your effort, and you start clapping for your own, because life doesn't reward effort, it rewards results. It doesn't matter how many hours you spent grinding in your room if you never shipped the work. It doesn't matter how many times you cried into your pillow about how unfair things are if you never got back up and did something about it. Nobody's going to hand you a gold star for trying. Nobody's waiting around to give you a participation trophy just for existing. And this is where the mantra kicks in. Nobody cares, work harder, because that's the only lever you actually control. You can't control who laughs at you. You can't control whether your family supports your dream or thinks you're nuts. You can't control whether life decides to throw you a curveball in the form of rejection, betrayal, or a random pandemic. But you can control how hard you work, how much grit you put into the process, how willing you are to get up every damn day and keep swinging even when the scoreboard says you're losing. And before you twist this into some macho hustle culture nonsense, let me clear something up. Working harder doesn't mean burning yourself out like an over-caffeinated hamster on a wheel. It doesn't mean sacrificing your health, your relationships, and your sanity just to show the world how driven you are. That's not hard work. That's stupidity disguised as ambition. What I mean by working harder is this. Stop waiting for someone else to validate you and start building something that validates itself. Work harder at being honest with yourself. Work harder at focusing on the right problems instead of distracting yourself with bullshit. Work harder at doing the actual, boring, unsexy grind that moves the needle in the long run. Because most of us don't actually fail from lack of talent. We fail from lack of persistence. We fail because we get discouraged too easily, or we think the universe owes us a round of applause every time we break a sweat. But here's a newsflash, the universe doesn't care. It's not out to get you, but it's also not out to help you. It's indifferent, and that's why this whole mantra is so powerful. If nobody cares, then it's all on you. And if it's all on you, then you're free to own every damn part of it. The wins, the losses, the humiliations, the comebacks. Think about it. Every inspiring story you've ever heard. Athletes who came back from injuries, entrepreneurs who went broke 3 times before making it, artists who were rejected for years before being celebrated. They all had one thing in common. Nobody cared about them until they worked so hard, so consistently. For so long that the world had no choice but to notice. The care came after the grind. The respect came after the sweat. You don't get to demand it up front. When you're sitting there thinking the world is unfair, when you're replaying your failures in your head like a bad mixtape, when you're craving sympathy because you tried and things didn't pan out, remind yourself nobody cares. That's not a curse, that's a challenge. That's the universe saying, cool story, now prove it. And I get it, this sounds brutal, it sounds cold, it sounds like I'm telling you to just suck it up and suffer in silence. But it's not about silencing your pain, it's about channeling it, because pain without action is just self-pity. Pain with action is fuel. If you're heartbroken, work harder. If you're broke, work harder. If you're insecure, work harder. Not harder at hiding it or pretending it doesn't exist. Harder at building yourself into someone who doesn't get crushed by it anymore. The irony here is that once you actually adopt this mindset, once you stop expecting the world to care, you become dangerous. In the best way possible. Because then you don't need their applause to keep going. You don't need their approval to validate your existence. You work because that's who you are. You build because you can't not build. You get up and grind not because the world is watching, but because even if nobody ever watched, you'd still want to see what you're capable of. That's freedom, that's power, that's how legends are made. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where nobody's clapping, nobody's cheering, and nobody cares. So, here's the deal, life doesn't care how you feel today. The world doesn't care how many excuses you've stacked up. And people, they'll care for about 10 seconds, then go back to scrolling their feeds. Which means you have two choices. Waste your life crying for attention, or take that indifference as permission to go all in. Nobody cares, work harder, not because it guarantees success, not because it guarantees happiness, but because the alternative, sitting around waiting for the world to care, is the fastest way to waste the one shot you've got. So stop waiting, stop whining, stop needing everyone else to clap. Get up, work harder, and give them a reason to notice, or better yet, don't, do it for yourself, because nobody cares, and that's exactly why you should. The phrase, nobody cares, work harder, isn't meant to be motivational in the Instagram quotes on a sunset kind of way. It's meant to smack you in the face, to strip away the self-pity and the endless justification you build for why your life isn't where you want it to be. Because if you look closely, a lot of us are secretly addicted to our own excuses. We polish them, we rehearse them, we repeat them to anyone who will listen. I didn't have the right connections. I wasn't given the same chances. They didn't support me. And hey, those things might even be true. Life is unfair as hell. But sitting around mourning that unfairness is like complaining that fire is hot. It doesn't change a damn thing. Working harder doesn't guarantee fairness, but it does guarantee movement. It guarantees that you don't stay stuck in the same loop of excuses. Because the moment you start pushing, the moment you start sweating for your own future, something shifts inside you. You stop being the victim of circumstances and start being the architect of whatever comes next. That's the essence of working harder. It's not a demand for perfection, it's a demand for ownership. And here's something most people won't tell you. Most of the obstacles in your life aren't external, they're internal. Yeah, the world throws challenges at you, but 9 times out of 10, it's your own laziness, your own fear, your own lack of discipline that keeps you small. It's the voice that says, I'll start tomorrow. It's the distraction disguised as productivity. Scrolling, planning, researching, but never actually doing the damn thing. Working harder isn't about slamming your head against a wall for 16 hours a day. It's about doing the work you've been avoiding. The boring, unglamorous nobodies. Watching kind of work that actually changes things. The truth is, most people aren't willing to do that. They'd rather chase shortcuts. They'd rather buy another self-help book, binge another motivational video, attend another seminar, because all those things feel like progress without being progress. They give you a dopamine hit of I'm improving, while you're still standing in the exact same spot. But the people who actually get somewhere, they don't sit around waiting to feel ready or motivated. They don't care if it's raining, if they're tired, if their friends are out partying. They show up, they grind, they stack small wins until those wins add up to something undeniable. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Even when you work harder, even when you put in the hours, the sweat, the sacrifice, nobody is obligated to reward you. Nobody has to care. That's why this mantra is so ruthless. You might bust your ass for years and still get ignored, still get overlooked, still get rejected. That's life, and the question isn't, will they notice? The question is, will you keep going even if they don't? Because that's the difference between people who dabble and people who dominate. The dabblers want quick wins, validation, pats on the back. The dominators want the process. They want the challenge. They want to see how far they can go even if nobody's clapping. When you embrace that, when you stop needing the world to care, you actually become unstoppable. Because you're no longer running on external fuel, you're running on your own fire. And that's the kind of fire that doesn't burn out when people stop paying attention. The moment you stop waiting for the applause and just dive into the grind, people eventually start to notice anyway, but not in the way you think. They don't care about your excuses, they care about results. They don't remember the 100 times you stumbled. They remember the one time you stood tall and delivered. And when that moment comes, people will call you talented. As if it was all some gift handed to you at birth, when really it was just hours of invisible labor stacked on top of each other while nobody gave a damn. But here's what most people don't see. Working harder isn't only about success in the obvious sense. It's about rewiring your brain to stop expecting the universe to babysit you. It's about becoming the kind of person who can take a punch and not crumble, who can be ignored, dismissed, underestimated, and still keep moving forward. That's the skill you're building every time you work harder while nobody cares. You're building resilience, which is basically the only cheat code in life. Talent fades, looks fade, luck is unreliable, but resilience. That's the one trait that guarantees you'll still be standing when everyone else has tapped out. And if you look closely, most people around you are constantly tapping out. They start something with excitement, post about it online, talk about it loudly for 2 weeks, and then silence. They quit the gym after a month, they abandon the side hustle after 3 months. They stop writing, painting, studying, learning because it got too hard or because nobody clapped for them. And then they go looking for sympathy, for someone to tell them it's okay, that the world is unfair, that maybe success just wasn't meant for them. But if you're serious about this mantra, you know the truth. The only reason they stopped is because they expected someone else to care more than they cared themselves, and that's where the separation happens. Because when you understand that nobody cares, when you really accept it down to your bones, you don't quit when things get quiet, you don't quit when things get hard, you don't quit when your work goes unnoticed. You keep grinding in silence, stacking those invisible hours, because you know the game isn't about being seen, it's about becoming undeniable, and that's why this mindset is so raw, so unforgiving, but also so freeing. It strips away the need for external permission. It strips away the endless waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and tell you you're good enough. It leaves you with nothing but the work, the sweat, the practice, the grind. And as brutal as that sounds, that's the purest form of power you'll ever have. Let it be this: stop waiting for someone else to give a damn. Stop waiting for the applause, the approval, the magical sign from the universe. None of that is coming. The only thing you can count on is the work you put in when nobody's watching, when nobody cares. Because that's where the real separation happens, between the people who want to be seen as great and the people who actually become great. Nobody cares, work harder, because the world doesn't hand out respect, it only recognizes results. And the day you finally accept that truth, the day you stop begging for the world's attention and start earning it through relentless effort, that's the day you stop being ordinary, that's the day you take control. That's the day you become unstoppable.